Hey everyone, it's Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation, back with another weekly podcast and video, an opportunity for me to connect with you related to important topics for endurance training and racing, especially as we move across the trajectory of a year. When we work with our athletes and our teammates inside Endurance Nation, a huge part of what we do is construct what a season looks like. In fact, we have an entire season roadmap. If you go to endurancenation.us, if you enter your email address to become part of our newsletter, it will unlock the site. And from there, you'll be able to see all the different components and resources that we have, one of which is this season roadmap concept, which takes you from the preparation phase early in the year through winter, through specificity, through racing, and through recovery as well. And this trajectory is an important part of what it means to evolve as an athlete. And it's a path that we walk each and every year, a process of regeneration, a process of strength and recovery, a process of growth, both physiological and intellectual, and a chance for recovery, for fun, and having a good time along the way. In today's episode, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that early season training as we exit the winter and we head into specificity. This is an opportunity for us to find room for a little volume. And I call it spring volume. So we'll be talking a little bit about spring volume today. First, let me just talk a little bit about that concept of moving from winter to specificity. So winter training typically has some higher intensity and some durability work, the idea being that we're going to lay the foundation for the rest of your year. When we exit the winter, unless you're doing an early season race, we move into specificity. Specificity is that time of year we really dial in on a particular aspect of what your sport is, what your discipline, based on your race selection. And that could be terrain, it could be distance, it could be sport related in terms of modality, whatever that may be. And we take a 6-week block, we call it specificity. And during this block, we really hone in on that. We become it, we live it, we learn it. This is a compressed opportunity for you to get ready. Think of it as sort of like boot camp for your brain, for your body to get ready. So for example, if you were doing a super hilly race of running this year, then this 6-week block would be more running focused. And we would do a fair amount of work on hills of varying intensity as a means of challenging you and helping you to build a better understanding of your capacity of running on hills, the work related to running on hills, the recovery needed from running on hills, all of that. Putting into a 6-week window is just enough for us to get over that hump and get good at it. Not so much that it becomes stale, and still allows us to build then volume and the other necessary specific items into your fitness arsenal as you head into the rest of your year. So when we think about this transition period between winter and specificity, we have a small window in here where there's an opportunity for us to do a little bit of spring volume. The spring volume is meant to be sort of a little jumpstart for your year as we're headed into a season of endurance, a season where a longer durations of training will be part of our repertoire. Having a spring volume bump is a nice way to increase your training stress, to take that fitness to the next level, but doing it in a very condensed and small way. What that means is we can take the step function up in terms of your training, but do it in a 2-day or 3-day or mini camp block session that allows for work and recovery, super focus on just getting the time in and then getting back to regularly scheduled training. So rather than doing an intensity piece or a race piece that often requires not just a taper, but also a fair amount of recovery, doing the volume is fairly manageable. It's challenging in that it's different than the work you've been doing to date. You're familiar with the work as you've done it before, but it's been a while since you've done it. So there's logistical challenges we need to solve. It's an opportunity for you to bring out some of those highlighted elements that set your volume apart from your regular training, like special nutrition, special gear, considerations for locations, things like logistically you need to manage with your schedule, all the things that are important or an inherent part of what it means to be successful at endurance training and racing. We get to revive that for a brief period of time, like a mini normal training vacation here in the spring to add some volume. As I said earlier, the parameters for this spring volume are pretty straightforward. They tend to be 2 to 3 days of time. Most people can get away with 2, which is totally fine. 3 starts bumping out of the weekends, unless you've got a long weekend and you can kind of synchronize this. I don't want you to push those limits too far. Plenty of work to be done this year, and you may need to call in some of those extra days back at some other time. So rather than forcing the issue, let's be really focused on these 2 days and make sure we're maxing them out. The goal here is zone 1, zone 2 endurance time. It's not about testing the fitness that you built and doing lots of fast, hard work, although that may be tempting. This is about time. So finding ways that you can challenge yourself to continue moving throughout the day over the course of these 1 or 2 days is really important. It doesn't all have to be running at a certain speed or cycling at a certain speed or swimming at a certain speed or whatever your other modality may be, rowing, etc. What it does mean is cumulative time in a zone. And you can earn time in a zone and earn time on your feet by hiking, by walking, by being active, by doing a session. Like say you do a hard bike workout in the morning, 2-3 hours on the bike on a Saturday morning. You have breakfast and you transition that to a nice long hike outside at a brisk pace with your teenage kids. That's like a 2 or 3 hour undertaking. You have lunch and you come home, and then maybe later in the day you get back on the bike, or you hit the treadmill, or you go for another ride, or maybe a swim. All of that adds up. That's a 6, 7, 8 hour day. Very different than the training you've done before. You haven't been burning all that family time or the other ancillary time, so you've got bandwidth in your schedule to do it. And just as importantly, it's a good change of pace for you mentally and physically, which I think is just totally overlooked here. Challenges associated with spring volume. It's hard to find a time and a place to do it and whether that's amenable to doing this type of work. So most of you will end up inside. There's a temptation to be completely race specific here. I'm getting ready for this early season race. This is my first long ride of the year. I have to be in the aero bars. I have to have my head down with an aero helmet on and just be racing because I'm racing. I know it's in 9 weeks or 10 weeks, but this is my first time. Definitely not recommended. You could definitely ride the tri bike if you wanted, but understand that it's been a while since you've been locked in those bars. I'd rather we just want to focus time on duration and specific intensity. I'm not so worried about the complete positional fitness. In other words, dialing in your perfect position on a day when you're going to be on the bike for 4 hours, when you've only been on the bike for 2 hours, it might be a tall order for some of us who have to work on some of that flexibility and ease into a particular position, especially if you haven't been on that bike in a while and maybe you haven't really gotten used to it, right? Or you've lost touch with that position or whatever that may be. So we don't want to overreach with the specificity of the work that we're doing by trying to tie it directly to our race outcomes. Rather, let's look at those race parameters and say, I'm doing an Ironman, or I'm doing this ultra run, or a 50K, whatever that is, and then make this volume a specific portion of that, thinking of it as sort of a series of stepping stones that get you from early in the season, where you are now in the spring, through the specificity phase. We'll be adding intensity with a little bit of time into the race prep and begin that process of ramping up the duration. The spring volume becomes a good opportunity for you to retest some of those elements that set that training apart, but also help you make it successful. So I think about the nutrition side. You're going to be super fatigued, so nutrition becomes critical. The recovery as well, in terms of taking care of your body, stretching and relaxing and all of that stuff, because otherwise you'll end up in a space where you're just not sure how things are going to work out. So you want to be really clear that you're healthy and you're sort of taking care of yourself overall. Otherwise, you run into a position where things can be really, really challenging. Okay. All right. So other elements that I want you to think about, really focusing in here in the spring volume time on keeping it fun. So as much as you can do to make this a social undertaking for yourself, the better off you will be. So inside Endurance Nation, we have Fun February as part of our mid-month training, the first part of a 3-part series called E-Everest. Get it? Everest, E-Everest. A 3-part series related to volume. That's an opportunity for you to challenge yourself. So let's find a way to do this with others, right? Involve others, lay down the gauntlet, put a challenge out there, say who can do this with me or who wants to join me on this challenge. Or rather, if you want to keep it simple, I'm doing this challenge. Anybody want to help me achieve this challenge? You can jump in for part of the way or do it with me or whatever that is. Lead the way, others will follow. And it's an opportunity to kind of create conditions and make it fun as well. A rising tide lifts all boats. So if you can improve the conditions and the fitness of those around you, they too, in turn, will help return the favor to you just simply through their presence and helping you stay on track and stay sane during some of this early season volume. If you've got some early season spring volume goals or ideas, let us know. You can hit us up here on Facebook or head over to EnduranceStation.us, where you can leave a comment or join the team, become part of our group. You can become one of our tribe members and just access our chat channels and be a part of the mojo and use your own training plan as you train for your races. It would just be part of our community. All right. I look forward to hearing from you soon. This is Coach Patrick from Endurance Nation signing off. Hope you have a fantastic week. We'll be back next week with more learning. See you.